Welcome to the Light and Shadow podcast. I am Gray, quantum informed spiritual mentor, founder of the Gray Aetherius Academy, and creator of the Alchemical Pattern to Healing framework. I work at the threshold where insight alone stops working and real transformation begins. Let me say something that is going to make some people uncomfortable. Your relationship with money is a spiritual diagnostic. Not because wealth is proof of divine favor, but because money, the way it flows or doesn't flow into your life, the way you feel when you have it or don't, the stories you tell about it, the ceiling you unconsciously place on how much you allow yourself to receive, reflects with extraordinary precision the state of your inner world. Your beliefs about worth, your relationship with receiving, your nervous system's baseline setting around safety and enoughness, your connection to or disconnection from your genuine purpose. All of it visible in the money. The spiritual community has a complicated relationship with this truth. On one side, the prosperity gospel, wealth, is proof of God's favor. On the other, the equally distorted belief that spiritual people should not want money, that desiring abundance is somehow incompatible with desiring enlightenment. Both are wrong. Both are distortion. And today we are going into the real relationship between money and spirituality, including the root causes of financial dysfunction that most conversations about money never reach. What quantum physics, neuroscience, and psychology actually say, and what genuine financial spiritual alignment actually looks like. So, before we can talk about what money actually is in a spiritual context, we have to dismantle what it is not. Across multiple lifetimes and historical religious institutions, the renunciation of material wealth was taught as a prerequisite for spiritual development. Monks took vows of poverty. Mystics rejected material comfort. The message is repeated across centuries, encoded in collective spiritual memory, was this: you must choose between God and gold, between spirit and matter. This is the false split. Spirit and matter are not opposites. As we explored in our episode on the pentagram and the seal of Solomon, matter is a spirit made visible. The downward triangle is not the enemy of the upward one. It is its necessary expression. The vow of poverty, taken in another lifetime, or absorbed from collective spiritual conditioning in this one, operates as an energetic constraint on financial flow in the present. The person who carries this imprint will find that money consistently slips away, that abundance feels dangerous or corrupting, that there is a ceiling on financial growth that no amount of strategy seems to break through. On the other side, the prosperity gospel equation of wealth with divine favor causes people in financial difficulty to interpret their circumstances as spiritual failure. It produces shame around financial struggle rather than honest examination of the real causes. Both distortions share one fundamental error. They make money the measure of spiritual worth in opposite directions. Both are projecting moral meaning onto a neutral energetic system. Now, what is actually driving your financial reality? Let's go deep to the actual psychology, neurological, and energetic root caused by financial dysfunction. Because most money advice addresses strategy. Strategy applied to an unhealed root produces temporary results at the best and consistent self-sabotage at worst. The root cause one is fear. Fear is the most fundamental root cause of financial dysfunction, and it operates in two distinct and equally destructive directions that most people have never mapped separately. The first direction is obvious. Fear creating lack. The person who is afraid there will never be enough contracts about money. The nervous system, calibrated by scarcity mindset, filters the environment for evidence of not enough and consistently finds it. They avoid financial risk, miss opportunities, undercharge, underinvest, and make decisions from the contracted, threat oriented place that we explored in our intuition episode. The fear of not having enough creates the conditions that ensure they continue not having enough. But the second direction is the one nobody talks about, and it is equally real. Fear that destroys abundance once it arrives. This is the person who builds something, earns something, or receives something significant, and then, within a predictable window, loses it all. The business that collapses right at the point of real momentum, the windfall that disappears through impulsive spending, bad investment, or inexplicable self sabotage. The income that reaches a certain level and then consistently falls back below it. This is not bad luck. This is fear of a different kind. The fear of abundance itself. The fear of what money will require of them at a new level. The fear of visibility that comes with financial success. The fear of becoming someone their family of origin will not recognize or approve of. The fear of losing the identity of the person who struggles, because that identity, however painful, is familiar. And familiar to the nervous system is safe. The sabotage mechanism is almost always unconscious. The person does not decide to destroy their own abundance, but some part of them, the part that learned early that abundance is followed by loss, or that success invites attack, or that having more than their parents had is a betrayal, finds a mechanism to return to the familiar level. Every time. The healing of this specific fear requires identifying what abundance threatens. Not what you consciously believe about money, but what the nervous system, below the level of conscious reasoning, has decided abundance actually means. Because until that belief is surfaced and examined, the sabotage will continue regardless of how much money arrives. Now, root cause number 2. And this is one of the most significant and least discussed root causes. And it explains a pattern that many high-functioning people experience but have never had language for. If you grew up in a home where money was consistently associated with stress, conflict, fear, or crisis, your nervous system learned to associate the presence of money with threat, not with safety. Think about what the experience of money in your childhood home actually felt like in the body. Was there a specific quality of tension that arrived when money was discussed? Did financial conversations between your parents produce fear, anger, shame, or silence? Did the presence or absence of money determine the emotional weather of the entire household? The child's nervous system does not learn about money through concepts. It learns through felt experience. And if the felt experience of money was consistently anxiety, argument, stress, instability, then the nervous system installs a specific and devastating equation. Money equals threat. And here is what this produces in adulthood. When money arrives, when a significant payment comes in, when a financial goal is reached, when abundance is genuinely present, instead of feeling safe and settled, the nervous system activates. Anxiety increases, sleep may worsen, irritability rises, the body behaves as though something dangerous has arrived rather than something good. The person cannot enjoy the abundance because their nervous system is reading it as the preamble to the crisis that always followed money in childhood. Their system is waiting for the argument, the sudden loss, the emergency that money seemed to always precede or accompany. This produces one of the most confusing and distressing financial experiences available. Working hard to generate money, succeeding in generating it, and then feeling worse rather than better. The money arrives and the anxiety arrives with it, which the person then resolves, often with conscious awareness, by spending or losing the money until they return to the baseline financial state that, however scarce, their nervous system recognizes as familiar and therefore safe. The healing here is not primarily financial, it is somatic. The nervous system must be taught through repeated experience, through the regulation practices we covered in our nervous system episode, that the presence of money is safe. That abundance does not precede crisis, that receiving does not have to be followed by loss. This update happens in the body before it happens in the bank account. Now, root cause number 3, and this is the root cause that connects the financial and the psychological most directly, and the one that the wellness and financial industries both consistently under address. For a significant number of people, spending is not primarily a financial behavior. It is an emotional regulation behavior. It is how the nervous system manages states of distress, boredom, loneliness, anxiety, or low-grade dissatisfaction that have no other outlet. The mechanism is neurologically precise. Spending, particularly the anticipation of a purchase, activates the dopamine system. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter of anticipation, of reward seeking, of the feeling that something good is about to happen. The moment of deciding to buy something produces a dopamine release that temporarily relieves whatever emotional state preceded it. This is a learned neurological coping mechanism, and like all coping mechanisms, it was probably useful at some point. It provided genuine relief in a context where other regulation tools were unavailable. The problem is not that it works in the short term. The problem is what it costs in the long term, financially, and in terms of the emotional states it prevents from being actually processed. Because spending, as self-regulation, does not resolve the emotional state that triggered it. It interrupts it. The anxiety, the loneliness, the boredom, the grief, whatever drove the spending, is still there when the dopamine spike subsides. And now, there is also the financial consequence to manage, which itself produces anxiety, which produces the urge to spend again. And this is a loop. Emotional distress triggers spending. Spending produces temporary relief. Relief fades. Financial consequence produces new distress. New distress triggers spending. The financial situation deteriorates not through the lack of income, but through the consistent use of money as an emotional anesthetic that never actually heals what it is being used to numb. The spending as regulation pattern is particularly common in people who grew up in environments where emotional expression was not safe or modeled, where there were no tools for processing difficult feelings, no co-regulation available from attuned caregivers, and where the child learned to self-soothe through whatever external means were available. Food, screens, and eventually, as they got older and had access to it, money and purchase. The healing requires 2 simultaneous interventions. First, developing genuine emotional regulation tools. The breath work, the somatic practices, the felt sense processing that allows emotional states to move through the system rather than being interrupted by a dopamine hit. Second, developing awareness of the moment before the spending impulse. The pause between the emotional state and the financial behavior where a different choice becomes available. That pause, however brief, is where the healing lives. With the root causes clearly mapped, let's now establish the energetic and quantum framework. Because understanding what money actually is, it changes how you relate to healing, your relationship with it. Money is not inherently good or evil. It is a symbolic representation of the exchange of energy between human beings, the agreed upon medium through which the value of one person's energy, time, skill, and creative output is traded for another's. As energy, money follows the same laws that govern all energy in the universe. It flows where there is genuine coherence. It accumulates where belief and action are aligned. It dissipates where there is energetic leakage, where fear creates contraction, where the receiver is not open to receiving, where the channel is blocked by unexamined wound. The quantum field, the 0 point field, the ether, is the field of infinite potential from which all physical reality emerges. The conditions that allow money to flow are organized at the level of consciousness before they manifest at the level of physical reality. This is the observer effect applied to abundance. The quality of consciousness you bring to money participates in organizing what financial reality you actually inhabit. Research by Mullainathan and Schaffer demonstrated that the scarcity mindset is not just an emotional state. It is a cognitive state that measurably reduces IQ, narrows attention, increases impulsivity, and impairs long-term decision making. The scarcity mindset literally makes you less capable of making the decisions that would resolve the scarcity. This is not a character flaw. It is a documented neurological consequence of the chronic experience of not enough. And the RAS, the reticular activating system, the brain's primary filter, calibrates to your dominant money thought pattern. The person whose dominant thought is scarcity literally does not perceive the opportunities present in their environment. Change the dominant thought genuinely at the neural architecture level, and the filter changes. The opportunities that were always there begin to become visible. Now, the central question is financial alignment the same as spiritual alignment? They are connected, but not identical. Spiritual alignment creates the internal conditions from which financial alignment becomes possible. It removes the internal obstacles, which is the scarcity imprinting, the poverty vow energetics, the worthiness wound, the fear that destroys abundance, the spending loop that drains it, the nervous system that reads money as threat rather than safety, that prevent financial flow even when external opportunity is present. But spiritual alignment does not guarantee financial abundance in the material sense, and financial abundance does not confirm spiritual alignment. Money can be generated through fear-based strategy, through manipulation, through the ruthless application of competence in service of the ego's acquisitive impulses. The genuine markers of financial spiritual alignments are specific. The work is genuinely yours, flowing from authentic purpose rather than performed strategy. The relationship with money is neutral, neither chronic anxiety nor compulsive grasping. Receiving feels as natural as giving. The asymmetry of the worthiness wound is healed. The spending impulse is not a regulation mechanism, or emotional states are processed rather than numbed. And the abundance circulates. It moves through you in service of something beyond personal accumulation. Financial alignment, understood quantum physically, is a coherence between belief, emotion, intention, and action in the domain of money. When these four are genuinely aligned, not performed, not forced, but actually integrated, the field responds through the physics of a coherent system interacting with the field of infinite potential. Incoherence, wanting abundance while believing you don't deserve it, intending financial growth while spending to self-regulate every time distress arrives, cancels itself out at the field level. The healing of the root causes is not separate from the financial healing. It is the financial healing. Now let's be specific about the healing, mapped directly to the root causes we identified. for the fear behind both lack and losing. Identify which direction your fear primarily runs. Is it fear of not having enough, producing lack, or fear of what abundance requires, producing a sabotage pattern that destroys it once it arrives? For fear of lack, the healing is in gradually expanding the window of financial tolerance, taking incrementally larger financial risks from a regulated nervous system rather than from the contracted, threat oriented place. Each risk that goes well updates the nervous system's predictions about what financial expansion actually produces. For fear of abundance, identify specifically what abundance threatens. Is it visibility? Is it family loyalty? Is it identity? The specific fear driving the sabotage must be named before it can be addressed, because the sabotage is not random. It is purposive. It is protecting something. And until you know what it is protecting, you cannot address the root. Now, for money conditioned as anxiety, the update happens somatically before it happens financially. Practice staying present in the body when money arrives, when a payment comes in, when an abundance arrives, without immediately spending it, moving it, or mentally allocating it away. Simply sit with the felt sense of having it. Notice the activation in the nervous system and breathe. Allow the activation to settle without acting on it. You are teaching your nervous system here, through repeated experience, that the presence of money does not precede crisis. That abundance does not have to be resolved by returning to scarcity. This is slow work. It is the most important financial work available. Now, for spending as self-regulation, develop the pause between the emotional state and the spending behavior, between the discomfort and the dopamine reach. Create a moment of awareness. Name what you are feeling before you spend. For example, I am anxious. I am lonely. I am bored. I am grieving. The naming itself activates the prefrontal cortex and interrupts the automatic limbic response. Then, and this is the key, provide the actual regulation the emotion needs. For example, breath work, movement, connection. The somatic practice that allows the feeling to move rather than be interrupted. And over time, the spending loop loses its charge as genuine regulation tools replace it. Now, for the worthiness wound and poverty vow, release the vow consciously and somatically. Rewrite the neural architecture of deserving, specifically, precisely, paired with genuine felt experience of its truth in the body. Not performed positivity, the actual, incremental installation of the belief that abundance is always available to you and safe for you, through small experiences of receiving without deflecting, of charging appropriately without guilt, of allowing money to land without immediately giving it away. Your relationship with money reflects your relationship with yourself, your sense of worth, your nervous system's baseline around safety, what you learned abundance means, and whether you have built a genuine regulation tools or are using financial behavior to manage what you have never learned to feel. The healing is not a financial strategy. It is the clearing of every root cause that prevents the natural flow of abundance through a coherent, aligned, genuinely purposive life. If you're ready to do this work at every level, the Grey Theories Academy and the Alchemical Parenting Healing Framework are where it lives. Everything you need to know is in the show notes below. Until next time.